How the f do you draw heads? I think this is a very common question by artists, and I'm gonna try to answer it with the best of my knowledge. It's called the Loomis method. This is the one that I use. Loomis method, basically, it's the thing that you draw with like the circle and everything, but I kind of don't follow it as loyal as it's supposed to be. But for explanation's sake, let's try to follow it. Loomis method, the very ubiquitous method that probably most artists, especially beginner artists, use. You start with a circle and then you draw a line in the middle. Basically, you slice the circle in 4 quadrants and then you draw a chin line. That's gonna be like the end of the jaw, hence the chin, right? And then you bisect that. And that will be the nose. And you also want to cut off a little bit of the sphere just to kind of thin out the head, and then you connect it. This is like the chin line, right? Is it called the chin line? I don't know. I don't remember. Whatever that is. Length of face. Then you can erase this if you want. But personally, I just don't bother doing that. So this is gonna be the eyebrow line. It's the center of the sphere, and it's gonna be where your eyebrows are. And then this line, this red line, the longer it is, the older the perceived age of the character will be, or the more mature in a sense. So if you want to make a chibi or like a loli or a shota, you might want to make that quite a bit more shorter. So you can like make it a lot shorter. So let's just make it up to this length. No, let's make it shorter so it's exaggerated. Let's get back to that later, and you'll see why it looks younger. Let's further dissect the parts. This one is the nose line. Is it called nose line? I don't know. But that's where you place your nose, or the bottom of the nose. And then you also bisect it over here. This will be the mouth. And then you will have the ears somewhere here. Yoink, yoink, ears. And then somewhere in the middle as well, you're gonna have the eyes. Oop. So basically that's how it works. The importance of this, you might ask, why go through all this if you can just straight up draw the face? Well, you actually have a point there, but especially for beginners, this is important so that they could understand the proportions of the face. You can see how the eyebrows tend to be in the middle of the sphere or skull, I guess. And it's equally spaced between the chin and the eyebrows. You will find the nose somewhere there, right? And then in between the nose and the chin, you will find the mouth. So if you want to put a little bit of math in there, if you're gonna treat the sphere or the skull as a unit of measure, that's gonna be 1 unit, and then the space between the eyebrows and the nose will be 1/2 of that, so it's basically half of that length. This one is variable, so this length is question mark. Longer equals older most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time it does. And then somewhere in the middle as well will be the mouth. So this one is also question 1, and then this one is question mark over 2. If you put some math in there, just so that you know how everything is like divided. Also, the eyes is also somewhere in between this, so that's like 1/4. That's basically how the proportioning of the face works. So here's the example of like a shorter line that extends to the chin. It can easily look younger. See how it's like a lot younger compared to the more mature face on top. So that's how you vary the age of the character. Mr. Peesh, could we use other shapes? At least in this particular method, you are instructed to use a sphere. But I've seen other methods use squares, but I'm not very familiar with it. But they sometimes use squares, and then it's not really a square, it's more of a cube. So they'd use it as a cube so that you can draw like a 3D face. Similar to the square being a cube, the circle in the Loomis method is also technically a sphere. So this is only when you're drawing the character up front. But if you're drawing it in perspective, you'll have to draw it as a sphere. And I think this is important that you understand the upfront version first, so that you can understand the proportions and the use of everything while you progress to the harder parts, which is you have to draw everything in perspective, right? So that's to answer the how do you draw heads. Now you draw it in perspective. It's like progression, like everything in art or even in sports or working out, calisthenics, whatever. There's progression in everything. You can't just jump and then learn the hardest parts. You have to like understand the basics first. So now if you're gonna draw it in perspective, the circle becomes a sphere. So now the circle becomes a sphere. So you can draw the center lines somehow in perspective. For example, you're drawing a character facing that way. You might want to draw the center lines of the sphere. It's still the same circle, but now it's in 3D. And let's make it so that the character is facing this way, for example. You're also gonna do the same thing. You're gonna extend the thing for the jaw, and then you're gonna cut this part. So you're gonna remove that. So basically this becomes a plane, like that. And then this point will be somewhere here, below this point, will be where your ears would be. And then you're just gonna connect. Wait, this is a little bit not in the right angle. And then that's where you're gonna connect the jawline to, right? Yoink, like that. And voila, you now have a face. And then the middle point, that's where you're gonna have your nose, and then mouth, and then eyes and eyebrows. Jajang. It's pretty much the same if you check it, see. So you preserve the proportions while trying to alter the perspective. And you can do that in very different perspectives. Let's try to do 4. Let's say you wanna do a character facing downwards. You just draw the sphere so that the orientation is facing downwards. Example like that. So you extend the chin line somewhere here. You draw the nose here. Now it's important to think about everything as 3D objects at this point. So I suggest before jumping into this Loomis method, you need to understand the basic fundamentals of form, you know, and drawing things that are 3D, because pretty much every component of the face is technically a 3D form. Like that. Let's draw like an upper view. I mean, viewing upwards. This is good practice, by the way. Just drawing this repeatedly. Maybe with a little bit more effort than what I'm doing right now. But yeah, you can see how the proportions of the face remain kind of consistent. Doesn't really matter what viewing angle you use. We could also do like a side view, I guess. Let's do like a little bit more complicated, like something like this. Maybe something like that. Most of the time I just think of the nose as a triangle, or more like a triangular prism. There we go. So you can do pretty much all the perspectives in using this method. But you do have to understand the facial structure. The facial structure I use right now is like super basic. You can see how flat it is, how simple lines just work. But if you wanna really improve on your facial structure, though it's not technically necessary depending on your style, though I still highly recommend studying it, you might add like a few more contours, like for example how the eyebrows protrude from the skull relative to the eyes. So there should be like a little bit of a depression there, as well as the cheeks, and then how it tapers down into the chin. You have to study how those work, and also of course every component of the face, like how do you draw the nose in perspective, stuff like that. And also the eyes, like how the eye is a sphere as well, and how the pupils are like depressed inside because it's like a concave structure, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, you have to study every structure of the face so that you can draw them properly. What else? Oh right, about expressions. The Loomis is also pretty useful for drawing expressions. Like for example in the eyebrows, because it can be very useful when drawing expressions, because you can use the lines. For example, the eyebrow line, you can use the eyebrow line to be a basis for your expressions. For example, you want to draw like a surprised expression, you might want to put the eyebrows a little bit higher from the eyebrow line. You can see it's like a little bit higher. And then you can accompany that with like shocked expression. You can also do other variations like angry. You put it a little bit below the eyebrow line because they are frowning, and then you change the expression to like angry. So that's how you use it as a basis. Another thing I would like to add is that how you don't really have to draw it this detailed, but for beginners I do recommend doing that. But then as you get used to drawing using this method, you might just want to do like very lousily draw it like this, because you don't really have to follow the structure strictly. You just need to have like the points where you can use it as the base, but you don't really have to draw it very cleanly like what I'm doing here. But it kind of comes with experience. Sometimes I see people just drawing the sphere and not drawing the other guidelines at all because they can kind of just eyeball everything. But yeah, that comes with experience. And yeah, this is how you use the Loomis method. Let's get some examples that I used it at. Okay, let's take this one for example. So we can kind of just eyeball where the sphere used to be. So this one is facing this way, right? The center line should be somewhere here. And then this one is gonna be a little cut off. Boink. And then the ear should be somewhere there, connecting the jaw. Center line should be somewhere here. And then you can see the other ear slightly protruding there. And then there's the eyebrows, the eyes, the center line for the nose, and then the mouth. So yeah, you can see how the Loomis method is being used in pretty much all my drawings. Though I don't really draw it as detailed as this one because I'm kinda too used to using the Loomis method at this point. But yeah, that's how you use the Loomis method. That's how you draw heads. Peesh Sensei got you. How to Artist 101.